At the beginning of the film, we are introduced to an old man named Jimmy Conlon. He used to be a professional Irish hitman, and after quitting, Jimmy became an emotionally unstable drunk. Jimmy used to work for Sean McGuire, a mob leader who was also his closest friend. Sean was the only person who still cared about Jimmy when everyone else, including his family, shunned him.
Look at me. We're going together.
Jimmy has a son named Mike. He is a limo driver and a professional boxer who helps kids at a neighborhood gym. Mike, tired of his father's behavior and his career as a killer, refuses to call Jimmy dad or spend time with him. In addition, Mike tries to distance his family from his father. One night, Jimmy plans to meet Danny, Sean's son, to ask for a loan. When Jimmy arrived at Danny's house, he saw two police officers in Danny's room collecting bribe money from him. This is a normal practice in the Mafia business to facilitate their illegal operations.
Thank you. All right. See you later.
What's up, Jimmy? You doing?
Danny seems irritated by Jimmy's presence when they meet, as he continues to borrow money from him after his retirement. Danny refuses to lend him money unless he agrees to do something for him and asks Jimmy to play Santa Claus at his Christmas party. Jimmy is forced to accept Danny's request because he desperately needs the money. Later, Danny meets with his father, Sean, and the Albanian criminals to discuss the sale of goods. At one point, Sean denies the gangsters' offer to authorize the sale of Albanian stuff in Sean's region.
I am a legitimate businessman now. Get the fuck out of my house.
Take the night to think it over.
The answer's no.
Disappointed by his refusal, the Albanian criminals ask Danny to return the money spent to arrange this meeting and negotiate with Sean. Since the amount of money is quite large, they give Danny until tomorrow and threaten to kill him if he does not return the money. Danny tells them that he will convince his father to accept the gangsters' offer. He returns to his father after the Albanians leave, and the two have a heated argument because Sean is not going to accept the gangsters' offer. If they accept the offer, they will have new competitors on their turf. We shift to Mike throwing punches in a boxing gym, flanked by one of his students, a young man nicknamed Legs, who is filming Mike's workout. After training, Mike is hired to transport two clients to a location, one of whom is the Albanian criminal who had met Danny at Sean's residence. The Albanian criminals ask Mike to accompany them to Danny's house. They change their minds and plan to get their money back from Danny tonight. When they arrive at Danny's house, they are outraged when the man taunts them by handing them a pile of fake money. A shootout breaks out, in which Danny manages to kill one of the gangsters.
Penny start dripping the waves of Carly.
One of them, when he realizes his partner is dead, attempts to flee the house. Danny, however, pursues him and shoots the man outside the house, killing him.
$1,000 bottles of scotch, smoke pot, cigars.
Mike, who was waiting in the car, witnessed the incident, as did Legs, who accidentally filmed the shooting with his video camera. Danny approaches Mike, brandishing a revolver after spotting him in the car. In the process, Legs manages to hide before Danny sees him. Danny takes Mike to his house with the intention of murdering him, because he witnessed everything. Mike reacts immediately and eventually escapes. Danny and his henchmen chase Mike, but he manages to escape by jumping the fence. Danny, on the other hand, manages to steal Mike's wallet and obtains his information and home address. Mike immediately calls his wife, who is at his sister-in-law's when he arrives home. He asks his wife to stay and not return home for everyone's safety. Knowing that he is in trouble with Danny, Jimmy goes to his son's house and asks him, on Sean's orders, not to report the murder to the police. He refuses to let his father into his house because he still despises him. Jimmy breaks into his house and tries to convince his son to accept Sean's orders. This is for the sake of both of them and for the safety of Mike's family because Jimmy does not want them all to die. Mike, however, continues to refuse and intends to report Danny to the police.
Grace comment.
All right, Michael. I'm back, Jimmy.
When Jimmy is about to leave the house, he notices that Danny's car is parked nearby. As a result, he rushes back into the house, where he finds Danny threatening to kill Mike with a gun pointed at him. Without much thought, Jimmy ends Danny's life by shooting him. After killing young Danny, worried Jimmy contacts Sean to give him the news, claiming he had no choice but to kill his son because he was going to kill Mike. When Sean hears this, he is devastated and hides the fact from his wife. He makes it clear to Jimmy that he will now have to kill him and also his son Mike.
You sure he's dead?
Yeah.
You know the show's to end.
Jimmy's son, shaken by the experience, quickly grabs the phone and dials the police number. However, Jimmy stops him because doing so would only make the situation worse. Because of the irresponsible actions of Mike's father, the latter decides to kick him out of his home. Subsequently, Mike calls 911 and informs the dispatcher that his father has just shot and killed a man inside the house. Sean reveals to his wife about the death of their son, and the two burst into tears in the bathroom. It turns out that he managed to intercept the conversation and sent his henchmen to Mike's house. He instructed two corrupt police officers to kidnap and kill Mike. Mike is taken into custody by the two crooked police officers and charged with murder.
I'm trying to explain to you.
You feel that?
I'm trying to explain to you. Officer, making a fucking mistake here.
On the other side, Jimmy watches as the two law enforcement officers take his son away from him. As he stands outside Mike's house, he comes to the conclusion that the corrupt police officers accompanying them are the same ones he saw in Danny's office. Jimmy pursues the police officers, causing an accident in which the officer's vehicle loses control and crashes. He goes to rescue Mike, who is handcuffed and sitting in the back seat. He then shoots and kills one of the corrupt policemen.
I'm not okay.
Come on, let's move. Don't do it, son. Come on.
Afterwards, he promptly walks off, taking Mike with him. However, Sean orders his henchmen, led by a man named Frank, to kill Mike and Jimmy. Sean's men follow them to the subway. Mike is stopped by a guy to whom he owes money. He tries to avoid him, but the guy insists, and suddenly a henchman shows up and starts beating Jimmy up. Mike tries to get away, but is noticed by a henchman. His father continues to fight with Frank, who manages to get the upper hand and strangles Frank with a cloth. Subsequently, Jimmy rides the subway away with his son. Sean gives his henchmen the mission of going to Danny's house and planting evidence so that they can blame Mike for the homicides. Mike becomes the prime suspect in the crime after Sean orders his men to put the bodies of the Albanian criminals in his vehicle. He also mobilizes all his men across the country to hunt down Jimmy and Mike. Mike's wife, Gabrielle, is watching a live news broadcast in which Mike and Jimmy are suspected of murder and are wanted by the police. Jimmy asks Mike to return with his family and stay in hiding until he contacts him. He then contacts Detective Harding, a police investigator who has failed to establish Jimmy's involvement in the deaths of the Albanian thugs. Harding informs Jimmy that eyewitnesses believe that Mike, and not Danny, was the shooter. Jimmy then strikes a deal with Harding. He agrees to prove Mike's innocence in exchange for handing over a list of everyone he has killed during his mob career. Later, Jimmy meets with Sean to apologize to him, demanding that Mike not be involved in their situation. Sean, however, refuses because he now has the right to have his own revenge. Jimmy informs Sean that Danny was going to kill Mike and threatens to inform the authorities about Sean's previous crimes. Sean, who does not care about Jimmy's threats, states that the police are not interested in the information Jimmy has on him. Hearing the threat of killing Mike's family, Jimmy rushes to Mike's house. He sends his son and family to another place for their safety.
What do you say? You need to get your family out.
Then Jimmy and Mike run to Leg's apartment to get the footage of Danny killing an Albanian gangster outside his house. In this way, they will establish that Mike is not the culprit. When they visit Leg's apartment building, one of the apartment residents sees them and recognizes them as fugitives, so she promptly reports their location to the police. Soon after, the police arrive to take the apartment residents to a safe place. Andrew Price, a skilled assassin hired by Sean, is also present and cuts the power to the entire building. Jimmy and Mike take the opportunity to mingle with the tenants of the apartments that are about to be evacuated because a fire has broken out. In the dark, Price uses night goggles and is able to figure out where Jimmy and Mike are. Jimmy tells his son to run away, while he will stay to kill the hitman. He goes downstairs through the balcony, and then a fight breaks out between him and the hitman. At one point, Mike returns and points the gun at the hitman's head, but Jimmy tells him not to do so, or he will be jailed. The officers arrive. However, Jimmy and Mike evade them and flee.
Died on the ground floor!
Suspect heading north towards the rail yard.
Nevertheless, when Jimmy is about to walk away, Price shoots him and seriously injures his hand. He and Mike then go to the house of Jimmy's brother Eddie. Eddie is not proud of his brother's past and informs Mike that Jimmy worked with Sean and killed his cousin to prevent him from testifying against Sean, and that he would do the same to Mike. Mike, shocked and disappointed in his father, returns home to his family. In an attempt to resolve the feud, Jimmy phones Sean again and asks him to stop pursuing Mike and his family, threatening to kill Sean if he continues to pursue his son.
I'm out of it.
Sean, however, ignores Jimmy's threat and hangs up, but by that time, Jimmy had already arrived at Sean's hideout and was ready to execute him.
Hey, Terry.
Jimmy slaughters Sean's henchman and eventually kills him, ending their argument.
Come on, Sean.
At the same time, Legs rushes to the police station. The boy finds Detective Harding and hands him the footage of Danny's murder of the Albanian thug. Harding confirms the video by checking the ballistics on Danny's gun. Meanwhile, Mike arrives at an isolated cabin to meet his family. He then decides to call Detective Harding to inform him of his current location and turn himself in. Not long after, Jimmy visits Mike and his family and informs them that Sean is dead and everything is over, allowing Mike and his family to live in peace. Mike seems relieved by this news and eventually introduces Jimmy to his granddaughters for the first time. Price, who turns out to be still alive, arrives and attacks the cabin. He succeeds in seriously wounding Jimmy, and then later chases after Mike and his family. The hitman briefly traps Mike, But Jimmy kills Price before the hitman can shoot Mike.
You should have killed me when you had.
When the police arrive, Detective Harding informs him that he has acquired footage of the Albanian gangster murders, proving that Mike is not the culprit, and thus acquitting him of all charges. Jimmy gives his last sigh and dies. Detective Harding notices that Jimmy is holding the list of victims he has killed during his criminal career. Although they were never very close, Mike appears sad and heartbroken at his father's death, because at the end of his life, his father had given everything to save him and his family. Mike returns to work as a boxing coach and driver, and lives a happy life with his wife and 2 daughters. Before going to work, Mike looks at a picture of himself with his father.